This is HOA violation vault. The theft was petty, and her meltdown was not. Linda Carver screamed that my name was going in the minutes as a warning to everyone. "Do not touch my clipboard," she yelled, holding that key control clipboard like it was classified intelligence. I stood in the Harbor Point Residential Association clubhouse corridor, one hand still on the door handle, while Linda blocked the office entrance with her entire body. She wore a blue trench coat even though it was 78 degrees in Jacksonville, Florida, and that cheap plastic badge clipped to her collar caught the overhead light. Her light brown hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, and her face had gone red. I am a project manager, so I know what escalation looks like, and this was already at a 9. My home-based business license was on the line, and Linda had spent the last 2 weeks trying to get the city to revoke it by flooding them with complaints. A vendor invoice had gone missing from the office yesterday, and Linda decided I was the thief. "You took paperwork from this office," Linda said, her voice loud enough to carry down the hall. "I have witnesses. You are a repeat offender, and this time I am filing a formal complaint." I opened my mouth to respond, but she cut me off. "This is not a debate. You will surrender any HOA documents in your possession, or I will issue a no trespass warning for the clubhouse and office areas effective immediately." I felt my chest tighten. The clubhouse had the only public Wi-Fi strong enough for client calls when my home internet dropped, and the office was where I filed maintenance requests. If she locked me out, I would have to drive to a coffee shop 20 minutes away every time I needed to work outside my house. "I did not take anything," I said, keeping my voice level. "I was not even in the office yesterday." Linda smiled, but it was the kind of smile that made my stomach drop. "That is not what the sign-in log shows," she said. "You were here at 4:15. I shook my head. I was at a client site until 6. "I have the mileage log." She waved a hand. "Logs can be faked. Invoices do not walk away by themselves." I stepped back and pulled out my phone. "I am calling management right now." Linda laughed. "Go ahead. They already know you are a problem. You have 3 prior complaints on file. Unauthorized satellite dish. Unapproved exterior paint. Trash bins visible from the street." I stared at her. Those were all dismissed. The satellite dish was legal under FCC rules. The paint matched the approved palette. The trash bins were only visible for 2 hours on pickup day. She shrugged. "The complaints are still in your file. Pattern of behavior. If you fight me, I will make it worse." That line stuck in my head. If you fight me, I will make it worse. I had heard her say it before, to another neighbor during a landscaping dispute last year, and that neighbor had ended up selling his house 6 months later after Linda buried him in violation notices. I put my phone back in my pocket. "I need to see the sign-in log." Linda turned and walked into the office without another word. I followed, but she stopped me at the threshold. "Wait here," she said. "Office access is restricted during investigations." The door closed in my face. I stood there for a full 10 seconds, staring at the brushed metal handle, before I heard the lock click. My hand started shaking, and I gripped the pen in my jacket pocket so hard the clip snapped. I needed proof. I needed witnesses. I needed a plan. I walked back outside into the Florida heat and pulled out my phone again. This time I called my neighbor, Marcus Chen. Marcus had been framed by Linda 2 years ago over a parking dispute, and he had kept every receipt, every email, every notice. When he picked up, I did not waste time with pleasantries. "Linda just accused me of stealing a vendor invoice," I said. "She says I am a repeat offender and she is going to ban me from the clubhouse." Marcus was quiet for a second. "What kind of invoice?" "I do not know. Something from a maintenance vendor, I think. She would not let me see it." He sighed. "She pulled the same thing on me, claimed I stole a package from the mail kiosk, then used old complaints to make it look like a pattern." "How did you prove it?" "I found the real thief on the doorbell camera. Took 3 weeks, but I got her on record admitting she made a mistake." He paused. She never apologized, just stopped mentioning it. I felt a tiny spark of hope. Can you help me? Marcus agreed to meet me at my house in 20 minutes. Marcus showed up with a black binder under one arm and a grim expression. We sat in my garage with the door half open because the AC was broken and the heat was unbearable. He opened the binder and flipped through plastic sleeves filled with printed emails, photos, and highlighted forms. "This is everything I kept from my case," he said. "Notice the pattern. She always picks one big accusation, then adds old complaints to make you look bad." I leaned in. "What was your big accusation?" "Theft. She said I stole a package that was delivered to the clubhouse lobby. Turns out the package was never delivered at all. The vendor admitted they lost it in transit, but Linda had already sent a community-wide email warning people about a thief in the neighborhood. He tapped a page. She implied it was me without using my name. I scanned the email. The wording was careful, but the implication was obvious. She had included a description of the resident involved that matched Marcus perfectly. "That is defamation," I said. "Maybe, but good luck proving damages." Marcus flipped to another page. Here is the kicker. She tried to get me banned from the amenities. No pool, no gym, no clubhouse. Said it was for the safety of other residents. I got a lawyer to send a letter, and she backed off. But she never admitted she was wrong. I looked at the timeline. Marcus had fought this for 3 months before Linda moved on to another target. I did not have 3 months. The HOA had given me a cure deadline for an unrelated landscaping notice that expired tonight, and if I missed it, they would start charging me $50 a day in fines starting tomorrow. Linda knew that. She was stacking deadlines to force me into a corner. "I need to clear my name before tonight," I said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That is not realistic." I shook my head. "It has to be. If I do not, she will use the missed deadline as more evidence of a pattern." He thought for a moment, then pulled out his phone. "Do you have access to the HOA portal?" I pulled up the login on my phone. Marcus leaned over and scrolled through the activity log. "Look at this. Someone accessed the vendor file cabinet yesterday at 4:20. That is 5 minutes after Linda says you were in the office." I squinted at the screen. The username was listed as Admin L. Carver. "So she was in the office at the same time the invoice went missing," I said. Marcus nodded. "And if you were not there, then she is lying about the sign-in log. Or she changed it." I took a screenshot of the portal log. That was clue number 1. Marcus suggested I go to the management office and request a copy of the sign-in log. Harbor Point used a third-party management company based in Orange Park, about 15 minutes away. I called ahead, and the receptionist told me I could pick up a copy if I submitted a written request. I drove over immediately. The management office was in a low brick building wedged between a tax prep place and a pawn shop. Inside, the waiting area had 4 plastic chairs and a fake plant that looked older than the building. The receptionist was a woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain. She looked up when I walked in. "You must be the 4:30, she said. I nodded and handed her the written request I had typed up in the car. She scanned it, frowned, and picked up the phone. She spoke quietly, then hung up and looked at me. "The property manager wants to talk to you before we release anything." I felt my stomach drop again. "Is that normal?" She gave me a sympathetic look. It is when Linda Carver calls ahead. 5 minutes later, the property manager came out. His name was Ed Rollins, and he looked tired. "Let me guess," he said. "Linda accused you of something." I nodded. "She says I stole a vendor invoice, and she is threatening to ban me from the clubhouse." He sighed and motioned for me to follow him into his office. He closed the door and sat down behind a desk covered in folders. "Linda has been vice president for 3 years, and I have never seen her this aggressive. I am not saying she is wrong, but I am also not saying she is right." He opened a drawer and pulled out a red folder. "This is your file. 3 complaints, all dismissed. 1 pending landscaping notice." I nodded. "The deadline is tonight." He looked at the file again. "The notice is for visible trash bins. You were supposed to move them out of sight by 5 p.m. today. It is 3:30. I can fix that as soon as I leave here, but I need the sign-in log first." Ed hesitated, then pulled up a document on his computer. I printed it and handed it to me. The log showed entries for 6 people yesterday. My name was not on it. I felt a wave of relief so strong I almost laughed. "I was not even here," I said, holding up the page. Ed nodded slowly. "Then Linda lied. Or she confused you with someone else. Or she changed the log." I stared at him. "Can I get a certified copy of this?" He printed another one and stamped it with a notary seal. "That is clue number 2, I said out loud. I left the management office with the certified log and drove straight home. I had 2 hours before the landscaping deadline. I moved the trash bins into the garage, took photos with timestamps, and emailed them to Ed. Then I sat down and tried to think. Linda had lied about the sign-in log, but that did not explain where the invoice went. If she was framing me, then she had the invoice. Or she destroyed it. Or she never lost it in the first place. I called Marcus again. "Do you still have contacts at the city planning office?" He said he did. "Why?" "Linda has been filing complaints with the city to get my business license revoked. If she is making things up, maybe the city has records that contradict her." Marcus said he would make some calls. An hour later, he called me back. "You need to go to the city planning counter tomorrow morning," he said. "Ask for Jessica Moreno. She is the clerk who handles HOA complaints, and she remembers Linda." I asked what Jessica remembered. Marcus laughed. "She remembers Linda screaming at her last year because the city would not shut down a food truck in the neighborhood. Jessica filed an incident report. If Linda is lying now, Jessica will back you up." That night, I could not sleep. I kept running through the timeline in my head. The invoice went missing at 4:20. Linda accessed the vendor file. I was not in the office. The sign-in log proved it. But Linda had already sent a community warning email about a thief, and even though she had not named me, everyone would know who she meant after today. My phone buzzed at 11 p.m. It was an email from the HOA. Subject line, "Compliance Notice." I opened it, and my chest went tight. Linda had added a new violation: unauthorized vehicle repairs. She claimed I had been working on my car in the driveway in violation of the covenants. I looked out the window. My car was parked in the garage. I had not touched it in a week. I forwarded the email to Marcus with one line: "She is making things up now." He replied immediately: "Document everything. Do not engage. Let her hang herself." I went back to bed, but I did not sleep. If you are enjoying this story, hit the like button and subscribe for more wild HOA drama where the Karens get exposed. The next morning, I drove to the city planning office in downtown Jacksonville. The building was a gray concrete block with security at the entrance. I went through the metal detector and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. The planning counter was a long window with 3 clerks behind it. I asked for Jessica Moreno. A woman in her 30s with dark hair and a city lanyard waved me over. "You must be the guy Marcus called about," she said. I nodded. "I need help with an HOA complaint situation." Jessica pulled up her computer and typed for a moment. "Harbor Point, right? Linda Carver filed 4 complaints about you in the last 2 weeks, all related to your business license." I felt my pulse spike. What did she say? Jessica scrolled through the screen. Noise violations. Unauthorized commercial signage. Excessive traffic. Parking violations. She looked up. "We investigated all of them. None of them were substantiated. Your license is clean." I exhaled. "Can I get a letter saying that?" Jessica printed 2 pages and handed them to me. One is the dismissal summary. The other is a copy of the incident report I filed on Linda last year. She threatened to sue the city because we would not shut down a taco truck. She called me incompetent and said she would have me fired. I read the report. It was detailed, professional, and damning. Linda had used almost the same language she had used on me. If you fight me, I will make it worse. Jessica leaned in. If Linda is trying to frame you, you need to go on record. File a police report. Even if nothing comes of it, it creates a paper trail. I thanked her and left. I drove to the nearest sheriff's substation and filed a police report for false accusations and harassment. The deputy who took the report was a younger guy with a shaved head and a calm demeanor. He listened to the whole story, took copies of the sign-in log, the portal screenshot, and the city dismissal letter, and typed everything into his computer. "This is a civil matter," he said, "but if she keeps escalating, you will have this on file." He handed me a case number on a slip of paper. That was clue number 3. I left the substation and called Marcus. "I have 3 pieces of proof now," I said. Sign-in log showing I was not there. Portal log showing Linda accessed the file. City letter saying her complaints are bogus. Plus a police report. Marcus was quiet for a second. "That is enough to embarrass her, but not enough to prove she stole the invoice. You need something that ties her directly to the theft." I thought about it. The vendor whose invoice went missing. Do you know who it was? Marcus said he would check. An hour later, he texted me a name. Coastal Maintenance and Supply. I looked them up. They were based in Atlantic Beach, about 20 minutes away. I called and asked to speak to the billing manager. The billing manager was a guy named Ron. He sounded annoyed. "We sent that invoice 3 weeks ago," he said. "If your HOA lost it, that is not my problem. We already got paid." I felt a chill. "You got paid? When?" Ron clicked his keyboard. 2 days ago. Check cleared this morning." I asked if he could send me a copy of the invoice. He hesitated. I am not supposed to share billing details with residents. I gave him my email and explained that I was being accused of stealing the invoice. He sighed. "Let me talk to my boss." 5 minutes later, I got an email with a PDF attachment. The invoice was for a box of new light bulbs and maintenance supplies. Total, $312. At the bottom, there was a payment note paid via check, signed by L. Carver. I called Marcus immediately. Linda paid the vendor 2 days ago. She had the invoice the whole time. Marcus laughed, but it was not a happy sound, so she lied about it being missing. Classic misdirection. She creates a crisis, blames you, and uses it to justify tighter restrictions. What do I do now? Marcus said I needed to confront her publicly, with witnesses, so she could not rewrite the story later. The best place to do that was the mail kiosk corridor, where neighbors picked up packages and checked the bulletin board. It was always busy around 5 p.m. I agreed to meet him there. At 4:45, I printed every piece of evidence I had and put it in a clear plastic sleeve. I grabbed my phone, made sure the battery was full, and drove to the mail kiosk. Marcus was already there, leaning against the wall. 3 other neighbors were checking their mailboxes. I recognized 2 of them, Rita, an older woman who always wore a sun hat, and Kevin, a guy in his 20s who worked from home. Marcus nodded at me. "Linda should be here any minute. She always checks the mail around 5. I pulled out the clear sleeve clipboard and held it so the date box on the city dismissal letter was visible. 2 minutes later, Linda walked in. She saw me and stopped. Her face went hard. "You are not supposed to be here," she said. I smiled. "Public mailboxes. I have every right." She walked toward me, pulling out her key ring. "I am warning you. If you keep harassing me, I will call the sheriff." I held up the clipboard. "I already called the sheriff. Filed a report this morning. Case number is right here." I tapped the slip of paper clipped to the clipboard. Linda's face went red. "You are lying." I pulled out my phone and opened the email from Coastal Maintenance. I also talked to the vendor. They said you paid the invoice 2 days ago. So the invoice was never missing. You lied. Linda stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a hiss. That invoice was confidential. You have no right to contact vendors. I kept my voice calm. You accused me of theft. I have every right to clear my name. She glanced around. Rita and Kevin were both staring now. Marcus had his phone out, recording. Linda turned back to me. "This is not a debate," she said. "You violated HOA privacy rules by contacting a vendor without board approval. I will be adding that to your file." I pulled out the sign-in log. "You also lied about me being in the office. This log proves I was not there." Linda tried to grab the clipboard. I pulled it back. "Do not touch my documents." She lunged again, and this time her hand hit my phone. It fell to the floor with a loud crack. Kevin stepped forward. "Hey," he said, "that is assault." Linda spun on him. "Stay out of this. This does not concern you." Kevin did not back down. "You just knocked his phone out of his hand in front of witnesses. That is assault." Linda pulled out a small orange tag from her coat pocket and waved it in the air. "I can issue compliance tags for any violation I see," she said. "Unauthorized gathering. Blocking mail access. I will tag every single one of you if you do not leave right now." Marcus laughed. "That is not a real enforcement tool. Those tags are for landscaping violations." Linda's face went even redder. "I am the vice president of this board, and I decide what is enforceable." I bent down and picked up my phone. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. I opened the camera and started recording. "Linda," I said, "you lied about me being in the office. You lied about the invoice being missing. You filed false complaints with the city. And now you just damaged my phone in front of witnesses. Do you want to keep going? Or do you want to stop?" She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating. Then she smiled. "If you fight me, I will make it worse." I felt that line land like a slap, but this time I was ready for it. "You already said that, and you already made it worse. Now it is my turn." I held up the clipboard again. "I am filing a formal complaint with the management company. I am also requesting a full audit of vendor payments. Because if you lied about this invoice, you might have lied about others." Linda's smile vanished. "You do not have the authority to request an audit." I shrugged. "Any homeowner can request an audit under Florida statute. Marcus already sent the request this morning. It is copied to the management company and the entire board." Linda looked at Marcus. He nodded. She turned back to me, and for the first time, she looked uncertain. Linda pulled out a portable printer from her coat pocket. It was one of those tiny thermal label printers people use for shipping. She turned it on, and it buzzed to life. "I am issuing you a formal notice right now," she said. "Unauthorized recording in a common area. Harassment of a board member. Refusal to comply with a lawful order." The printer spat out a label. She peeled it off and tried to stick it on my jacket. I stepped back. "That is not a real notice." She kept advancing. "It is real because I say it is real. I am the enforcement officer for this HOA, and you are in violation." Kevin stepped between us. "No," he said. "You are out of control." Linda turned on him. "You want a notice too? I can print as many as I need." Rita, the older woman, finally spoke up. "Linda, you need to stop. This is embarrassing." Linda spun toward her. "Embarrassing? You want to see embarrassing?" "I will show you embarrassing." She pulled out her phone and opened the community email group. "I am sending a message right now." She started typing with her thumbs, fast and angry. Subject: theft and harassment update. She read it out loud as she typed. "Residents are advised that an ongoing theft investigation has identified a suspect. The individual has refused to cooperate and has engaged in harassment and intimidation of board members. Effective immediately, this individual is banned from all amenities pending a disciplinary hearing." She hit send. I felt my chest go cold. That email just went to 240 homes. My name was not in it, but everyone would know it was me. Marcus looked at me. "Time to escalate." I nodded. I called the management office and got Ed on the phone. I put it on speaker so everyone could hear. "Ed, this is urgent. Linda just sent a community email accusing me of theft and banning me from amenities. I have proof she lied about the theft, and I need you to intervene right now." Ed sighed. "Put her on." I held the phone toward Linda. She crossed her arms. "I am not talking to you on speaker in a hallway." Ed's voice came through, calm but firm. "Linda, this is Ed Rollins. I am instructing you to retract that email immediately. The sign-in log does not support your accusation, and you do not have unilateral authority to ban a homeowner from amenities." Linda grabbed the phone out of my hand. "Ed, this resident has been harassing me, damaging HOA property, and obstructing my duties. I have every right to protect this community." Ed's voice got sharper. "Linda, I have the vendor invoice in front of me. You paid it 2 days ago. The invoice was never missing. You filed a false report." There was a long silence. Then Linda hung up the phone and threw it back at me. I caught it. She turned and walked toward the exit, but Marcus blocked her path. "You are not leaving until we get a retraction," he said. Linda tried to push past him. "Move." Marcus did not move. "Retract the email, or I am calling the sheriff right now and telling them you just committed assault and battery in front of 5 witnesses." Linda looked around. Kevin, Rita, and 2 other neighbors who had come out of their units were all staring. She pulled out her phone again and typed something. Then she held it up. I sent a correction. "It says the investigation is ongoing and no conclusions have been reached." "That is not a retraction," I said. She glared at me. "It is the best you are going to get." Then she shoved past Marcus and walked out. The next morning I got an email from Ed. Linda had been suspended from enforcement duties pending an internal review. The board president had issued a statement saying the theft accusation was unfounded and apologizing for the confusion. The email ban was lifted. I also got a call from the vendor, Ron. He said Linda had called him that morning and tried to get him to say the invoice had been delayed. He told her to stop calling. That afternoon, Marcus and I went back to the management office to request a formal preservation of records. Ed printed the request and added it to my file. "This freezes any attempt to delete or alter documents related to your case," he said. "If Linda tries to change the portal logs or the sign-in sheets now, it is evidence tampering." I thanked him. Then I asked about the audit. Ed nodded. The board voted to hire an independent auditor. They will review all vendor payments for the last 2 years. If there are discrepancies, the auditor will flag them. I asked how long that would take. Ed shrugged. 6 to 8 weeks. But Linda knows it is coming, and she knows why. That is pressure. I left the office feeling lighter than I had in days. Marcus and I grabbed lunch at a taco truck near the neighborhood entrance. The same taco truck Linda had tried to shut down last year. We sat on the curb and ate. "This is not over," Marcus said. "Linda will try to make your life hell in other ways. She always does." I nodded. "But now I have a paper trail. And witnesses. And a police report." He smiled. "And a cracked phone screen to remind you." I laughed. 2 weeks later, the auditor released a preliminary report. There were 11 vendor invoices that had been paid late or paid twice. In every case, Linda had been the one to authorize the payment. The total discrepancy was over $4,000. The board called an emergency meeting. I was not required to attend, but I went anyway. The meeting was in the clubhouse main room, and it was packed. Linda sat in the front row, arms crossed, face blank. The board president, a retired firefighter named Tom, read the auditor's summary out loud. "The discrepancies appear to be administrative errors, not intentional fraud," Tom said. "However, the pattern of late payments and duplicate payments suggests a lack of oversight. Going forward, all vendor payments will require 2 signatures." Linda stood up. "This is a witch hunt," she said. "You are letting a disgruntled homeowner with a vendetta control board policy." Tom cut her off. "Linda, you lied about a theft. You filed false complaints with the city. You damaged a homeowner's property. You sent an email banning someone without board approval. This is not a witch hunt. This is accountability. Linda looked around the room. No one met her eyes. She grabbed her coat and walked out. The room was silent for a moment, then someone started clapping. It spread. I did not clap. I just sat there, feeling the weight lift. The board updated the access control rules after the audit exposed how Linda had used restricted keys to control who could enter the office and amenities. Every key holder now had to sign a log every time they used a restricted key, and the log was reviewed weekly by the board president. Linda kept her position as vice president for another month, then resigned. The official reason was personal commitments, but everyone knew. I ran into her once in the parking lot after that. She did not say anything, just got in her car and left. My business license stayed active. The city sent me a letter confirming that all complaints had been dismissed, and my file was clear. I framed it and hung it in my home office. Marcus and I became good friends after that. We started a neighborhood watch group that actually focused on safety instead of enforcement. Linda's replacement as vice president was a younger guy named Steve who worked in IT. He overhauled the HOA portal and added transparency features so residents could see board activity in real time. It was not perfect, but it was better. The funny karma moment came 3 months later. Linda tried to appeal a parking ticket she got in front of the clubhouse. She claimed she had been on official HOA business and should be exempt. The new board president, Tom, reviewed the appeal and denied it. His reason: board members are not exempt from parking rules. This is not a debate. I heard about it from Rita, who heard it from someone at the board meeting. I laughed so hard I almost cried. Linda paid the ticket. A month after that, the HOA hired a new management company after Ed retired. The new company had stricter policies about board member access to vendor files and financial records. One of the first things they did was require all board members to take a certification course on fiduciary duty and ethics. Linda did not take the course. She stopped attending board meetings entirely. Her house went up for sale 6 months later. Marcus and I threw a quiet celebration at the taco truck. We did not talk about Linda much. We talked about the new playground equipment the board approved and the neighborhood movie night someone was planning, and how much better things felt now that people were not walking on eggshells. I kept the evidence binder Marcus had given me. I added my own documents, the sign-in log, the portal screenshot, the city dismissal letter, the vendor invoice, the police report, the auditor summary. I did not need it anymore, but I kept it anyway, just in case. Because the thing about HOA drama is that it is never really over. There is always another Karen waiting in the wings, another rule to weaponize, another neighbor to target. But now I knew how to fight back, and I had proof that it worked. The final piece of closure came when the management company issued a formal apology letter to me for the harassment and false accusations. The letter was signed by the board president and the new property manager. It acknowledged that I had been wrongly accused, that the investigation had been mishandled, and that the board had implemented new policies to prevent similar incidents. The letter also included a refund of the $50 landscaping fine I had paid under duress, plus interest. It was not much, but it mattered. I framed that letter too. Looking back, the whole mess taught me a few things. First, document everything. Every email, every notice, every conversation. If you do not have proof, you do not have a case. Second, do not fight alone. Marcus saved me by sharing his experience and his contacts. I could not have done it without him. Third, stay calm. Linda wanted me to explode, to give her an excuse to escalate. I did not give her that. I stayed controlled, even when she knocked my phone out of my hand, even when she tried to print a fake notice and stick it on me. Fourth, use the system. Florida law gave me the right to request an audit. The management company had policies that protected me once I invoked them. The city had records that contradicted Linda's lies. The sheriff gave me a case number that created a paper trail. All of that mattered. Fifth, expect retaliation. Linda tried to ban me from amenities, file fake complaints, and trash my reputation. She did not stop until the board forced her to stop. That is how power-tripping board members operate. They do not give up until the consequences are bigger than their ego. And sixth, remember that most people are reasonable. The neighbors who watched the confrontation at the mail kiosk did not side with Linda. Kevin stepped in. Rita spoke up. The tow driver I called later that week to ask about Linda's threat to have my car towed told me she had tried the same thing on 3 other residents and the company had flagged her account. The clerk at the city counter, Jessica, backed me up. The vendor, Ron, refused to lie for Linda. Those people mattered. They were the reason I won. Linda's attempt to make a tow driver announce my name and plate out loud never happened, because the tow company had already cut her off. The demand for preservation of records that froze Karen's delete tricks became the key move that locked in the evidence before she could rewrite history. The HOA was forced to update access control rules after the key mess was exposed, and the new policy made it impossible for anyone to abuse restricted access again. Karen got corrected by management in plain language, and that correction was read out loud at a board meeting in front of 40 people. Linda never recovered her credibility after that. But the best moment, the one that still makes me smile, was when Linda threatened to call police during the mail kiosk confrontation, and Kevin calmly told her to stop yelling. She did not call. She just left. That was the moment I knew I had won. Not because of the evidence, though the evidence mattered. Not because of the audit, though the audit mattered. But because she lost control of the narrative. She could not scare me anymore. She could not isolate me. She could not rewrite the story. And once that happened, it was over. I still live in Harbor Point. My business is doing well. The new board is not perfect, but it is functional. There is no more weaponized enforcement, no more selective rule application, no more midnight emails threatening fines. The neighborhood feels lighter. People smile when they pass each other in the parking lot. The clubhouse is open again, and the Wi-Fi works. I use it every week for client calls. I even joined the board last year. I am the treasurer now. It is boring work, mostly reviewing invoices and reconciling accounts, but it matters. Because the boring work is what keeps the Lindas of the world from taking over. If you pay attention, if you ask questions, if you demand transparency, then it is a lot harder for someone to abuse the system. Not impossible, but harder. And that is worth it. Marcus is still my neighbor and my friend. We grab tacos every couple of weeks and talk about HOA gossip, which is less dramatic now but still entertaining. We laugh about the Linda days, but we also remember how bad it got, and we stay ready. Because you never know when the next Karen will show up with a clipboard and a cheap plastic badge, ready to make your life hell over a missing invoice or a trash bin or a satellite dish. But when that happens, I will be ready. I have the binder. I have the contacts. I have the experience. And I have the proof that it is possible to win. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.